throwing shade. So here we are in the graphical desktop. If everybody can see that, give me a thumbs up, right? You can see my graphical desktop thing. A couple of things. I've opened up Illustrator, so we're going to work on this today. Some of the things that you can do when you're working in the graphical desktop, I'm sorry, make sure that nobody was trying to get into the Zoom. One of the things that you can do is you can, I know that the space is so small on like a Chromebook, right? So one of the things you can do is you can like expand it out, and hopefully you're seeing that, and make it more full screen because you don't have to worry about everything else once you're in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to step you through a couple of things. I'm going to show you something new. So let's do this. I'm just going to draw some shapes here, just like you would have with the LivePaint. Now I don't have my, the Volkswagen thing in there in this LivePaint environment. So I'm just going to draw some funky shapes just so we have something. Now again, I'm going to go ahead and copy it, paste it, and move it over here so that I have a copy once I start doing the LivePaint. So I'm going to grab it with my selection tool. I'm going to say Object, LivePaint, Make. And now I should be able to grab my, which is under, let me move this over here so you can see it a little better, which is under my gradient tool. I've got my I'm sorry, not the gradient tool. It should be under the eyedropper, but it is not. So I'm going to change my workspace. And that's another thing I want to make sure you get in the habit of doing. Window, workspace, and we'll go to painting. And I'm going to bring this over here. I'm going to hit my little dots down here at the bottom and make sure that it's not out. There it is, LivePaint bucket. And let me make sure. Everybody should have a mouse at this point, right? Let's go, actually, I'm going to change my workspace to tracing because that's where you guys should have been with this. Bring this over here, come back out. LivePaint bucket. I'm going to go ahead and drag it onto my toolbar. So I clicked it, and now I have it on here. And I'm going to go ahead and open up my swatches. We'll go Window, Swatches. And I'm going to pick a foreground color. And with my LivePaint bucket, I'm going to do this, 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 this. Now, one thing I definitely didn't tell you yesterday, but I didn't think you were going to think about it this way. I showed you when I used the gradient mesh tool on the fender of the Mustang. Did you notice how I drew another shape and then did the gradient mesh tool? If I try to do the gradient mesh tool right now on a LivePaint object, it's not going to work. So that's the main thing. So the gradient mesh tool or the mesh tool will not work on an object that has had a LivePaint applied to it. So if I wanted to put a highlight on this particular shape in this corner, I would have to come back in and draw another shape like this. And I'm going to leave the outline on it so you can see it. So it's right there. And I guess I should try to zoom in. So this shape is a separate shape and it's the same color as the shape behind it. So now that you can see it, I'm going to go ahead and hit my mesh tool and put a mesh point in here. You'll notice that when I hit the mesh tool, it got rid of the outline. So when you're doing these things like using the LivePaint bucket or using the gradient mesh tool or the mesh tool, it fundamentally changes it fundamentally changes the nature of the object that you're painting. Okay, so now I've got this, and now I can put all the gradient mesh tools I want on there, right? Or gradient mesh points rather, sorry. And of course, just like before, I can move it, but that looks horrible, but you get the idea. So remember that, and if you guys are going to tell me that you had your line art, and then now it's important that we don't have, like, let's just say, for example, I'm going to add on layer 2, I'm going to add an ellipse, right? A circle right here. Okay, and I'm going to make it black and white, just like that. Now I'm going to lock layer 2, because you may have accidentally locked a layer, or it might not be visible. And so, like, if I grab all of this and I say object LivePaint make, it will make a LivePaint, but it's not gonna include that circle. So that's not gonna work. So if I go ahead and go edit, undo, edit, undo, make LivePaint. Now that this layer, if I go back and unlock this layer and I come in, select it all with this selection tool, not the direct selection tool, this selection tool, and I say object LivePaint make, now there's nothing that should stop me from creating the LivePaint. And the cool thing is you'll see that it does see like the underlying things, because this was overlap. So I can do that, or I could grab it, you know, make any color that I want, or I can make it the same, and then, you know, you won't see the difference. Now you see I'm clicking out here, it's not doing anything because this isn't the LivePaint group. But again, it's going to highlight and show me my areas. So are there any questions about that? Those of you that said your LivePaint bucket wasn't working, do you kind of see like maybe you want to give it another shot? Yes, so at one point I did the path to show up, but then I still couldn't paint in it. Well, that's my suggestion when we go on break, or when we do our work. Let's see. My suggestion is that you do exactly what I did just now. Just draw some random shapes together and then make sure that it works. So let me do it one more time. So let's just say, for example, I'm going to draw my Volkswagen here. So I draw my car. And actually, I'm going to do something kind of funny. I'm going to grab these pieces here, and I'm going to use my, and I think I showed you this the other day, my window pathfinder, and I'm going to slam these pieces together, and I'm going to go object arrange send to back, because I want to order it here, like put it in order. And then for all of these, I'm just going to make it look like that. So, and then I can come back here using my pen tool and make my new Volkswagen. This, I realize how dumb this looks, but this is a judgment-free zone. So I'm going to grab this and I'm going to make everything have no fill. Then I'm going to come back here and make these two wheels have a fill. Come on. There we go. Okay, so I just drew this. This is a shape, just like I'm asking you to do. So now when I select them with the direct selection tool, and I go Object, LivePaint, Make, I now have a LivePaint group. So if I grab my LivePaint bucket, my LivePaint tool, I can color this thing just like that. So there's no reason why this shouldn't work for you in Illustrator. Okay. So, and I'm going to let you go in a minute and practice that. But the other thing that I want to show you, are there any other questions? Everybody's got it now, right? Okay. So I'm going to make another new document. Can you, let's see, file. Yeah, no, you don't have to use the Pathfinder. I just did myself. Again, the LivePaint bucket or the LivePaint tool can work on anything, any assemblage of shapes. So it can be lines that you drew. So if I did that, and then I drew this, and this, and this, and the star tool, right? If I grabbed all those shapes together, I can go Object, LivePaint, Make, and then I can grab it and change colors on each individual piece, however I see fit. That's all there is to it. There's nothing special. Now the gradient mesh tool or the mesh tool, again, I have to emphasize, will not work on something that has had LivePaint applied to it. So if I wanted to put a highlight on this ball right here, I would have to come back in and draw another layer on top of it, make it the same color, and then put a gradient mesh dot in there. You see that it gets rid of the outline because, again, it's fundamentally changing the shape. And then I can put that in there. Now, of course, also I can now move it and adjust it, make it whatever. If that makes sense. So the LivePaint tool or the LivePaint bucket and the mesh tool kind of can't be used on the same shape, but you can make another shape and layer it on top of it. Okay, so there is that. And then again, I've got another thing. So the LivePaint bucket is just there to help you out. The other thing that I want to show you has to deal with type, or in this case, we're using it for type. So here's my Happy Halloween type. This is a completely new document. It has nothing to do with this. This has nothing to do with the LivePaint bucket or the mesh tool. This is type. So change gears. So I'm gonna pick, I'm not gonna pick papyrus. You can't make me. This is gonna be a terrible example, but I'm going to copy and paste. Make another example, and I'm going to choose a different font here. Something like this. And in this case, I'm going to return. I'm going to hit an actual return, and then I'm going to adjust the leading, which you guys know about. So, and that's going to be over here on my type palette. That's too tight. Okay, and I'm going to adjust the kerning, tighten it up just a little bit. Okay, so let's start with this one down here. Illustrator gives you the ability to warp things, to play with it and to kind of move them around a little bit. And that is going to be under, so I've got this selected. I've got what I want to warp. I've got it selected. And under Effects, Warp. Okay, now, if you look, let me see if I can do a screen grab. Okay, there are a bunch of options under here. Arc, shell, flag, wave. To get into the window, just pick any of them. It doesn't matter. I usually just immediately go Effect, Warp, Arc. Okay. And what this is going to do is it's going to show you how it can twist and warp. So you can see that it says Happy Halloween there. And I'm just going to move this over here. And you can adjust the amount on the options. So, and if yours isn't showing, there is a preview button down here. So you have to hit preview and then move it. So there's that. There's arc lower. Now you do understand that it's showing you what your type looked like originally with this color. And then it's showing you what it's going to look like with the black. So there's a bunch of different choices. Happy Halloween. You've even got things like this, flag, wave, fish. Now I'll be honest, most of these, I think they just did it because you can do it. Most of these you're probably not going to use. But let's do flag. All right, so I'm going to pick flag and I'm going to make it have 67% bend. Also, under horizontal and vertical, you can really start to mess with it and change it up. Make it look really wild. So let's do that. So I like it. Again, I can turn the preview off and it should, the virtual desktop is a little slow, but it will show me what I've got. And I'm going to, oh, by the way, I could also do it vertically, which isn't very readable, or horizontally. So I'm going to say OK. Now the cool thing is, this is still type. And you can see that when I mouse over it. It comes back. And that means I can grab my text tool and I can click in here and I can put more type. I can change it up. And you see how it's dynamically changing it as I'm going through, because it is still type. I can also, while I'm in this area, I can change the color. Right? I can make it whatever. And in addition to that, because it's still type, I can fix any spelling errors. I can do things like adjust the leading, for example, bring them closer together, which I can see there's going to be a problem right in here, so I'm not going to go that close. And I can still, the bottom line is I can still affect it just like type. I can also click on the stroke and add a stroke to it if I wanted to. And I can, of course, open up the stroke window, which is right here, make that stroke thicker or what have you. Of course, I don't want to do that, but we go back to 0 stroke. Now, once it's done, once I'm done with doing this and it's the way I want it, I can always say, now I can say Object, Expand Appearance. And when I do that, it is no longer type, but also I don't have to worry about accidentally like clicking on it and changing the spelling or something like that, or losing the font or whatever. So I can also copy it. And I am going to make the stroke thicker, like this. And I'm going to paste it back on top. And now I've got some Happy Halloween-y type. Now, I'm going to zoom in so you guys can see this. So I was using my trick of selecting the shape and increasing the size of the stroke. Well, those little spiky parts come out because of the way the line is joined. So if I want to get rid of that, and I can't erase that, if I want to get rid of it, I need to go to my window, stroke, and I'll move it over here so you can see it better. And I mentioned this before, but this will happen if you start doing that. I've got to adjust the way that the points go together. So you'll see here, the corner is a sharp corner. If I have this selected and I make it a rounded corner, those points disappear, okay? And so, but that is an easy trick that enables you to have like a nice thick outline around it without squishing it on the type. Because if I just had this type and put a stroke on it, you'll see that the stroke will eventually choke out the color, right? You guys are seeing that. And again, I can move it. It can be off center. I can, you know, make it look even weirder or whatever. Now, with this type right here, again, and I chose this one because I can go with the type, create outlines, and that will change it from being a font to being a shape. And so if I wanted to, I could mess with it. I could, and you know, something like this, I could probably get away with adding a little bit of a stroke to it to make it a little thicker, you know, but this H is really hard to read, but that's because the capitals are like that. So now that this is not type, now that it is shapes because I created outlines, I can mess with it, I can adjust it. Also, I can go object, ungroup, because maybe I think the L's are too close together. So I can select these and move them over. You know, something like that. Or I can make this H larger. Pretty unreadable, but I think we can figure out it says Halloween. So are there any questions about that? Okay, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to stop this recording, and then we're going to talk about what our next steps are.